In the next 24 hours, millions of people will use today to set intentions for their future. Most of them will miss what this day is actually for. January 11th, 2026 is being called a portal day. People think that means opening, manifesting, pulling something new into their life. But real portals don't work that way. They don't respond to desire. They respond to readiness. And readiness has nothing to do with what you want. It has everything to do with what you're still carrying that cannot come with you. That's why days like this feel different, even if nothing visibly happens. There's a pressure without urgency, a seriousness without drama. Something is being asked of you without words. Not to add a goal, not to make a promise, to notice what has already expired but hasn't been acknowledged yet. If you feel slightly unsettled today, slightly quieter, or strangely clear about something you've avoided, that's not coincidence. That's what this day exposes. Portals don't open the future. They close what no longer fits. And what closes today doesn't do it violently. It does it honestly. If you're here right now, don't rush to use this day. Stay. Because what you don't carry forward matters more than anything you try to bring in. What makes January 11th different is not energy. It's timing. This day sits right after the rush of beginnings and right before habits fully lock in. The noise of New Year has faded. The discipline hasn't failed yet. The story is still flexible. That window is rare. Most days, you're either reacting to the past or already committed to the future. Today, you're briefly between them. That's why this day doesn't feel exciting. It feels exposed. You can still feel what you are about to commit to before it becomes automatic. You can still sense where momentum is artificial and where it's real. That's uncomfortable. Because once you feel that difference, you can't unknow it. January 11th doesn't amplify desire, it sharpens discernment. You might notice it as a sudden clarity about something you were ready to push through anyway. A quiet thought like, "Why am I doing this again?" Not dramatic doubt, just precision, and precision removes excuses. That's why people rush to ritualize days like this. They turn them into intention setting so they don't have to feel the honesty underneath. But if you stay with it, without trying to make meaning, this day shows you one thing very clearly: where your life is about to harden, where choice is about to turn into routine, where movement is about to become obligation. That's the portal. Not an opening forward, a last clear look before something sets. If you feel a subtle resistance today, don't label it fear. Fear is loud. This is quieter. It's the body recognizing that something being carried into the year doesn't actually belong there anymore. January 11th doesn't ask you to decide. It asks you to not lie at the moment when lying would still be easy. That's why this day matters. Not because it promises a better future, but because it gives you one honest moment before momentum takes over. If this resonates, it's not because you believe in portal days. It's because you recognize the timing. Stay with that recognition. Don't rush to use it. Just notice what feels slightly harder to pretend about today than it did last week. That's the doorway. And once you see it, you'll understand why this day always mattered, even before you had a name for it. And here's the part most people won't notice until it's gone. This day doesn't stay open, not in a dramatic way, not with a closing signal. It fades quietly as routines resume and momentum takes over. That's why what you see today can feel easy to dismiss tomorrow, You'll think, maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it wasn't that important. I'll deal with it later. And that's exactly how the door closes, not by force, by familiarity. January 11th is one of the last moments where you can still feel the difference between what is chosen and what is simply continued. Once the year settles, everything feels justified again. Effort looks like commitment. Habit looks like purpose. Motion looks like meaning. But today, those disguises are thin. You can feel where you're about to lock yourself in, not trapped, committed without noticing. That's why this day doesn't ask for action. It asks for restraint. The restraint to not immediately convert clarity into a plan. Because plans rush past truth. Truth needs space. If you give it that space today, something subtle but permanent happens. You won't be able to pretend later that you didn't know. And that knowing changes how you move, even when you do nothing about it right away. So let this day be simple. No declarations, no promises, no symbolic gestures. Just an honest pause at the exact point where the year could still go in more than one direction. You don't have to choose now, just see. That's all this day ever asked for. And if you felt that, even for a second, you already used the portal. Not to open something new, but to stop yourself from carrying something forward without awareness. Let that be enough for today. And if you're wondering why this feels so specific, why it doesn't sound like a general message, it's because this day doesn't speak to everyone the same way. It doesn't meet you where you want to be. It meets you where you already are. That's why one person feels nothing today, and another feels quietly confronted by something they've been avoiding for months. Not because they're more spiritual, because they're closer to a threshold. January 11th has a way of surfacing the exact thing you hoped would settle on its own. The conversation you keep postponing, the direction you committed to out of momentum, the version of yourself you're still performing even though it no longer feels true. You don't suddenly realize it today. You remember it. And that remembering feels strangely calm, no panic, no urgency, just the clear sense of, I already know this. That's the hook of this day. It doesn't convince you of anything. It removes the ability to unsee. After today, you can still continue as before. Nothing will stop you, but something will be different. When you repeat the old pattern, you'll feel the slight drag of awareness, not guilt, not shame, accuracy, and accuracy changes the cost of pretending. So if this video feels like it's staying with you longer than it should, that's not because of the words, it's because today made space for something you are already carrying to come into focus. You don't need to comment, you don't need to act. But if you want to mark this moment, do one quiet thing. Notice what feels harder to dismiss today than it did a week ago. That's where the year will eventually ask you to respond. Not loudly, not all at once, but steadily. And when that moment comes, you'll remember this wasn't sudden. It started here, on a day that didn't demand belief, only honesty. Stay with that. This channel is for people who recognize moments like this when they happen, and don't rush past them. Before this video ends, there's one last thing you need to notice. Nothing dramatic happened, no answer arrived, no direction was given. And yet, you're still here. That's not accidental. It means something in you recognized this moment before your mind could explain it away. Most people won't remember January 11th for anything specific. They'll move on. They'll forget this feeling. They'll tell themselves it was just a day. But you won't. Because once you see what this day showed you, you can't fully go back to pretending you didn't. From here on, something subtle changes. Not immediately, not visibly, but the next time you say yes out of habit, you'll feel it. The next time you keep something alive that's already over internally, you'll feel it. And that's the point. This channel isn't here to tell you what to do next. It's here to make sure you don't forget what you already saw. The next video goes deeper, not into belief, not into meaning, into the exact moment when awareness turns into movement without effort. If you leave now, that's fine. But if something in you knows this wasn't random, stay. Because what opened today doesn't close quietly. And the more you try to ignore it, the louder it gets. This channel is where we listen before that happens. I'll see you in the next one.